Your life will change if you save and invest your first $100,000. The sooner you accomplish that goal, the better. But Charlie Munger, a famous investor and multi-billionaire, is the one giving this advice, not me. My perspective on saving and investing your first $100,000 has radically changed as a result of hearing Munger discuss its significance. In reality, at the age of 24, following Charlie's counsel enabled me to increase my personal investment portfolio to around $500,000. This is not a boast on my part. Many people my age have significantly more money than I do. I mention this instead to show that Charlie Munger's wealth-building strategies actually do work. I've read most of Charlie's published works and seen virtually every interview he's ever given. In this video, I'll summarize the key points you should know regarding accumulating wealth. Every day, successful people's well-known quotes are something we all encounter. Most of the time, they are either too abstract or not too practical to be of much use, but if you know anything about Charlie Munger, you know he has, to put it simply in words. He is well known for his memorable one-liners. Charlie was asked for his finest wealth-building advice by a young man at an old Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting in the 1990s. The young man groused about finding it difficult to get started. His wealth wasn't growing as quickly as he would have liked. At this point, Charlie Munger placed an order for a quotation that immediately gained notoriety in the financial sector. Although the first $100,000 is a bitch, you must complete it. While that undoubtedly caught the audience's attention, he continued. "I don't care what you have to do," he said, "as long as it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't bought with a coupon. Find a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can gradually let up on the gas." In essence, Munger is suggesting that it's critical to reach your first $100,000 in savings and investments as soon as feasible. You must do every effort to reach the $100,000 threshold. The first $100,000 is the most difficult milestone to reach on your path to financial security. Every succeeding achievement, such as $100,000, $500,000, and $1 million, becomes simpler. Allow me to elaborate. Munger's recommendation to reach the $100,000 milestone as soon as feasible has to do with two really straightforward yet effective statements. Compound interest is one of the most magical words you can use to start developing your wealth. Compound interest has an impact on how you view money once you fully comprehend it. The following is the formal definition of compound interest. The interest on a loan or deposit that is calculated using both the initial principal and the accrued interest from prior periods is known as compound interest. That explanation does compound interest a disservice and is by no means inspirational. Compound interest is more like a snowball rolling down a long hill, in my opinion. Starting at the top of the hill, you create the first snowball by hand. You then roll the snowball down the slope. The snowball becomes bigger and bigger with each roll as it gathers more and more snow. Then, at the foot of the long hill, the snowball is much larger than it was when you first started. This snowball didn't require any additional labor on your part. You simply rolled it down the hill and allowed gravity and time do the work. Compound interest and wealth accumulation both use the same principle. But before we continue, be sure to hit the like button. And if you're not yet subscribed to Pick Up Finance, hit that subscribe button now and turn on the bell notification so you won't miss the best videos that we upload. Let's get back to it. Let's assume that Mark and Alex were present when Charlie gave his advice on the significance of earning your first $100,000. When they heard this counsel, Mark and Alex, both 20 years old, took it to heart. Both had respectable careers and normally handled their finances well, but when Mark heard Charlie's counsel, something changed. A dawning occurred in his mind. He made up his mind that he would do whatever it would take to heed Charlie's counsel. Mark became extremely grave. He developed an extraordinarily low spending habit and kept putting in more and more hours at work. He reached his first $100,000 at the age of 25. Alex, on the other hand, wasn't really moved by Munger's advice. He carried on as usual, turning a profit of $100,000 at the age of 35. How much do you think each of these men would have when they are 70, 10 years after Mark, assuming none of them ever added another dollar to their investment accounts once they achieved the $100,000 mark? Let's assume a 10% return for the purposes of this example. This 10% return is roughly in line with the stock market's long-term historical average return. Alex is 70 years old and possesses $2.8 million. After reaching the $100,000 milestone, Alex became a millionaire despite never making another dollar contribution. Now, assuming Alex reached $100,000 10 years earlier than Mark, how much more money do you estimate Mark has? Perhaps you're considering an additional $500,000, $1 million, or even $2 million if he's truly lucky. Those figures, however, are far from accurate. When Mark turns 70, he will have an incredible $7.3 million in his account. In comparison to his friend Alex, this is about $4.5 million more. Keep in mind that Mark reached the $100,000 milestone at the age of 25 and never added another dollar to his account after that. When Charlie Munger remarked that you can ease off the gas a little after you achieve $100,000, he meant exactly this. This is due to the fact that after you have $100,000 in your account, compound interest begins to handle much of the work involved in increasing your wealth for you. Using our previous illustration, at $100,000, you have constructed a starting snowball that is large enough to gather a lot of snow as it rolls down the hill. Before we discuss the actual procedures and how to reach the $100,000 mark, it's important to note that a large part of compound interest's power is the returns you can earn from your savings. Now that we've established why it's so crucial to reach the $100,000 milestone as soon as possible, I want to spend the remainder of this video discussing the steps you may take to do so. Particularly, how I use Charlie Munger's advice to improve my life and reach the $100,000 milestone in my early 20s. Again, I'm not saying this to brag. Instead, I would like to offer you a useful framework based on what I have discovered. Simple math is the key to accumulating riches. Simply the gap between your income and outgoings determines how much you can save in any particular time frame. Consider yourself a company. Revenue, or what you brought in less what you spent, is what we call profit. Your aim should be to maximize the profit line, exactly like in a corporation. You may save more money and build a bigger snowball the higher this profit line is. There are only truly two approaches to maximizing your savings potential at any given time: maximizing your earnings and reducing your outgoings. You can alter these two factors to increase the amount of money you can set aside. Let's now discuss the maximization of income portion of the equation. One of the most important things Charlie Munger taught me was the idea of selling your time back to yourself. When Charlie was a young attorney, he noticed right away that the firm he worked for was billing him to clients at a rate of, say, $400 an hour in today's currency. Naturally, Charlie does not receive the equivalent of $400 per hour from the law firm because the firm was taking a significant cut. However, it might actually understand how priceless his time was. He had to start giving himself, his most important client, time every day. Charlie worked for himself early in the morning and late at night on projects that would immediately enhance the amount of money he could make. He worked on real estate ventures and studied investing throughout that time. Selling your time back to yourself is a really effective idea that can help you move closer to your first or perhaps next $100,000. Depending on your skill set, this can take many various forms. If you work as a teacher, it can entail doing some extra tutoring. If you're a software engineer, it can entail working on side projects after work hours, or if you know how to edit videos, it might entail getting in touch with your favorite YouTubers and asking if you can edit their videos. The options are quite varied. I want to now move on to the other aspect of wealth creation, which is cutting costs. Charlie Munger listed between 5 and 7 things when asked what the key to a successful life is. To spend less money than you earn was among the top suggestions. Warren Buffett, a business partner of Charlie Munger, has gone above and above in cutting costs. Despite having a net wealth of over $100 billion, Buffett continues to drive a car he purchased in 2014, and his idea of a fine restaurant is a place with $2 signs on Google. It doesn't matter how much money you make when it comes to generating wealth, it matters how much money you maintain. A person who earns $250,000 a year but spends $240,000 has $10,000 left over to save and invest. However, if a person makes $60,000 a year but only spends $40,000 of it, they have $20,000 to save and invest. Accordingly, the individual making $60,000 a year is actually increasing their wealth at a rate that is twice as fast as the person making $250,000 a year, merely because the person making $60,000 is cutting back on spending. Lifestyle inflation is the phenomenon where people spend more money as they earn more money. People tend to demand fancier apartments, nicer cars, and more expensive clothing as their income increases. According to a recent study, lifestyle inflation is to blame for the fact that almost 1 in 3 individuals earning $250,000 annually are living paycheck to paycheck. Let me provide you the data to support the claim that the largest obstacle preventing the average person from reaching the $100,000 milestone is lifestyle inflation. Consider Mark and Alex, the two individuals from our previous scenario. Alex recently received his college degree and started a job with a $65,000 beginning salary. Let's assume that Alex is a very ambitious individual who puts a lot of effort into his work. Alex is able to receive 8% yearly raises because to new duties and promotions. However, Alex's spending increases along with his income. His living costs in his first year after graduation are $60,000, which enables him to save $5,000. But Alex falls victim to lifestyle inflation every year. His income grows by 8% annually, but his costs grow by the same amount. Because of this, Alex has only been able to boost his annual savings from $5,000 in year 1 to just under $10,000 at the conclusion of year 10. This is true despite the fact that his income increased from $65,000 in year 1 to $130,000 in year 10. In the course of the 10 years, Alex was able to save almost $72,000. Not a little sum of money, mind you. Let's examine our friend Mark's performance, nevertheless. Like Alex, Mark earned $65,000 in his first year of employment. He is a fantastic worker and has received raises of 8% every year. There is, however, one significant distinction between Mark and the earlier example of Alex. The lure of lifestyle inflation was resisted by Mark. Mark was able to keep his spending rise to just 2% annually, as opposed to rising at the same rate as his income. Do you believe you could have saved more money than his friend Alex at the end of year 10? The response is quite surprising. In total, Mark was able to save close to $285,000, over 4 times as much as Alex, simply because Mark was able to resist the urge to substantially raise his standard of living as his income increased. In this scenario, Mark and Alex earned the same amount of money during a 10-year period. Mark, though, made it a point to consistently spend less than he earned. Quite proud, Charlie Munger would be. You are obviously intelligent, ambitious, and motivated if you are watching this video. The biggest danger to your ability to accumulate wealth is probably lifestyle inflation. Make every effort to combat it. Keep in mind Charlie's suggestion that living within your means is essential for a successful and happy life. I hope this video has taught you something. Look around our channel to see if there's anything else you may enjoy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video.